Ahoy, aspiring sea wolves! Are you ready to set sail into the vast oceans of War Thunder? Before you do, let's take a moment to understand the incredible variety of naval vessels that await you. Naval vessels come in all shapes and sizes, each with their own unique weapons and systems designed for specific roles. But where should you start in this sea of options? Don't worry, I've got you covered, because in this War Thunder's Premium Buyer Ship Guide, we will help you navigate your way to a safe purchase, ensuring that you find the perfect ship that suits your playstyle and preferences. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and the myriad of coastal vessels, I will cover them all. Each class has their own strengths and weaknesses, and it's important to find the right ship that suits your preferred playstyle. With no ship superior in every situation, it's important to know where you fit in. So whether you're a fan of long-range artillery duels, tactical coordination, or lightning-fast strikes, War Thunder's naval vessels will have something for everyone. Let my guide help you find a place in the fleet. Would you like to know more? Keep watching. Welcome to the channel, friends, confidants, and advisors. I'm Commander Tyrael, and today we're going to go through all of the premium ships in War Thunder to see what would be worthy of a purchase and what wouldn't. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that everything below rank 2 is kind of irrelevant for participating in battle pass and daily tasks. So I would recommend that if you're going to purchase a ship, it be at least rank 3. There are some notable mentions at rank 2, but I will talk about them when I come to them. We'll go through each nation one by one, starting with the USA. Now, this will be a sort of informal video, just going through each of the ships. There is a good chance that I've already made a video about specific ships, so if you'd like more information about that, check out the channel for that as well. So starting with the USA Blue Water, we're going to start with an honorable mention of the USS Wilkinson, which is a rank 2 destroyer / frigate, depending on your beliefs. It's a pretty decent ship. It's got amazing secondary weapons. This one, the premium version does not overheat. The tech tree version does. It's got the same torpedo and the same rocket launcher armament. Anti-submarine rocket launcher, which may be useful in the coming weeks or months with the current submarine event going on. It's a decent purchase at 575 Golden Eagles on sale, and I mean, most ships at your weight level will be fought, and you'll do decent damage. You've got great armor-piercing shells, but you are a little bit fragile. Yeah, 500 Golden Eagles, I wouldn't say no to that ship. But I already have the tech tree one, so I do find it a little bit redundant. You don't want to play two of them. Next up, we've got the Gearing class Frank Knox. Now, the Gearing class is a very good American destroyer. It was an attempt to upgrade the Sumner class, and they did a good job. It was slightly extended and a little bit more survivable than the Sumner. It does have some issues with fire over the bow, but largely it's one of the more survivable American destroyers. Next up, we have the USS Moffat. Everybody knows the Moffat if you've heard of War Thunder Naval. It's like the Seagull. It's got one of the best reward modifiers, and it's actually the peak. You can't get any better than 1800% Silverline reward modifier, and the Gearing Frank Knox only has slightly less than that. Has a better battle rating too. The USS Moffat is a bit of a meme in that everybody knows how to kill them, and some of my videos about how to kill them were the most popular that I've made. Next up, we have the USS Helena. Also another meme ship. If you've played War Thunder Naval for any period of time, you will be familiar with the Helena. It used to be the single best earning ship, simply because of its survivability and its rate of fire. Couple that it doesn't have a better reward modifier than the Moffat, but its rate of fire just meant that you could make hundreds of thousands, and it really bullied dreadnoughts. And a lot of people stopped playing dreadnoughts and battleships because they were getting killed by 6-inch guns unrelentingly. But they have been power crept, and they are fairly easy to kill with the newer breed of ships. Next up, we have the USS Des Moines, which will be on sale as a pack, I believe, in the next couple of days. This has a revolutionary auto-loading 8-inch gun, but it is very, very fragile, unlike the Helena. You can be slapped into oblivion with one single salvo, and you will be fighting battleships and dreadnoughts, and so they will have guns that can slap you. This is a backline support cruiser, despite its firepower. Next up we have the USS Arkansas. Now I haven't sailed this one, but I have sailed her sister, the Wyoming, and I played them during the time where Helenas were slapping around the larger battleships, and there has been some change, but I feel like this design is outdated when you are fighting more modern warships and you have a lot of vulnerabilities in the scattered ammunition throughout the ship. That said, it is still a reliable ship. 6.7 is not a bad battle rating, and sometimes you'll get a down tier where you'll just bully on cruisers and there'll be probably one or two other equal battleships on the other side. Next up, we have nothing. That's it for the premiums in the American line. Let's have a look at the coastal tree. Now, the US coastal tree is not that great, so I would not recommend buying anything below rank 3. And then your only other option is the Thunderbolt PT556 Elco 80 footer, which we have them in the tech tree. The premium version is unique in that it has a quad mount 20mm on the rear of it. But it's still an American PT boat. Like, for its size and weight class, it has an obscene amount of firepower, but you are still a wooden boat that moves slower than most other nations' PT boats. Like 65 k's is pretty fast, but you're only slightly faster than destroyers, and some destroyers are faster than you. And so I say that the best PT boats are about 70 to 80 kilometers an hour or more. My favorite is the PT658. Unfortunately, it's not available. It was the River Hunter Battle Pass boat, but if you get the opportunity to get it, I would say this is the premier PT boat in terms of premiums. This particular boat is a restored museum boat, and of my video was featured at the museum, which I'm totally blessed. Then we have the USS Douglas, the first American missile boat. It wasn't the first in the game, that goes to the Italian boat, but this one has the RIM 24A, which are very, very powerful, and they are capable of shooting down airborne ordnance if you're lucky and you can target it. Very powerful missile and excels in naval EC. Next we come up to the Germans. Now the VS8 Schnell has 16 contact moored mines and is very similar in design to the VS10, which is a torpedo boat version of this vessel. This thing sticks out like a sore thumb, especially when it's up on the foils, and it doesn't have as much firepower as the VS10. I'll show you the other class here. Slightly shortened with 2 torpedo tubes instead and an extra 2 guns on the rear. This is probably the better boat, but if you want something that's niche, something different, the VS8 could be useful. I didn't have a lot of luck in it, but I didn't really try either. I should mention that all these coastal boats, if they're lower than rank 3.3, they can't be used in naval EC, which is a real shame because this boat here, the 701 and the VS8, may be useful in naval EC. Next up we have the M802. This thing I used to call the baby Bismarck. It was at 3.0 and there was not a lot of things that could kill it aside from direct hits with torpedoes or if you got really lucky with rockets. I tried to come up with a whole playstyle based around fighting these things, and it ended up translating well into fighting destroyers later on in my naval career. It says 3.7 now, which makes it a little bit higher than it used to be. It will fight destroyers, but it's still a top choice, especially in a down tier. The Germans are pretty bare bones at low rank, so their decent stuff starts at rank 3, which is good. Recent addition is a Z47. Now, I haven't played this, but I'll have a look at it at face value. It's got deck armor, it's a 6 gun destroyer with 12.8 centimeter guns, and I believe it has no form of armor piercing. Yes, so it's very similar to the Akizuki from Japan in that there is no AP ability. So you're going to really not necessarily struggle against destroyers, but you're not going to be able to fight them as effectively as an armor piercing based destroyer, such as the Z20 Carl Galster, which was an early release, and I'm not sure if it's even on sale, but I'll mention it because it does like to pop up from time to time. This is a decent ship. It's a prime example of World War II destroyer design for the Germans at the pinnacle of their fighting. Like, these things they worked as a team of 4, I believe, and they're all slightly different in their design, but they all had the same mission. This ship has fast-firing guns on par with the American 5-inch guns, although you have less of them. You get a cool decal if you buy it. And while this ship doesn't have a dedicated armor-piercing shell, it does have a base fused high-explosive shell, which is excellent for fighting destroyers. Next up, I believe we have the T-31. Now, the T-31 is another early ship, which came out in the early days, and I'm not sure if it's on sale, so I'll still mention it anyway. It's not technically a destroyer. I believe that this is a motor floating torpedo boaten, or something along those lines. Any Germans in the chat, please let me know what it's actually called. You have to play this thing similar to the M802 in that it's got lighter guns, the same 10.5 centimeter guns. It's faster, squishier, and yeah, it's not a great ship, but it's okay at 4.0. Next up, we have the K-class light cruiser, the Karlsruhe of the Kriegsmarine. It's a very light cruiser, doesn't have much in the way of armor, but it has a very unique feature in that the turrets are offset slightly. And I can't show you, the zoom's not great there from above, but what it does is it lets each turret have a better fire angle on a particular side. So it's almost like having a front turret, and it's extremely good at convoy raiding and running away from things. So if you can see here, that turret has view of the fore, and the other side turret has view on the back. It also has the downside that you have to present more broadside to get that third turret around, but it does present an interesting playstyle if you like maneuver warfare. Despite sitting at 5.7 though, like most of the early premium ships, it does have a lower SL rate than some of the newer ships that are at lower ranks than it, so keep that in mind. It has a worthy AP round as well, which is pretty good for fighting light cruisers, but it's really a destroyer fighter. Next up, we have probably the cream of the German crop, the Prince Eugen, or the Prince Eugene, or the Prince of Pain, whatever you prefer. This ship has been in the game since I believe the beginning, or very close, like since they instituted large ships, and it's very well known. It has a lower SL earner than, like I said, some of the other ships, and it has a very squishy point in the front, but it has very, very good 8-inch guns with excellent reload, excellent AA capability, fairly good secondaries which you can control manually, and all around it's a great ship to play. And it's also a great indication of what you're going to get when you get to the Scharnhorst. In terms of gameplay, it's very similar to the Scharnhorst. It's a Scharnhorst mini at its battle rating. It's usually the most armored ship, and it has the most firepower, usually. There are a few things that now have power crept the Prince Eugen, the Prince of Pain, but overall, it's an excellent ship and you can't go wrong. And honestly, you could grind out the entire German tree using that ship. And that brings us to Nassau, the newest edition and the first German battleship that's been added. I've done a recent video about this one. If you want more information, please check out that video. It would help out the channel a lot. And that's it for Germany. Next, we'll head over to Russia. Now, the Russians, they have a few things up their sleeves, a few great ships. The early ships, I honestly wouldn't bother with them unless you have a few hundred to throw around. Really, I would skip straight to the Schmelny. This thing comes up in the Warbond shop, and at 500 silver lions, it's criminally cheap. Great silver lion reward modifier at 4.3. The most powerful guns for its battle rating, shells I should say, not necessarily the gun, the shells. The SAP rounds on the Soviet ships are criminally overpowered. And I don't say that lightly. It's overpowered in the context of what they fight. The TNT mass is sometimes insane. And here we come to the absolute cream of the Russian crop in terms of, actually, I would say it's the best premium destroyer and arguably the best destroyer in the game currently. Blagorodny, Black Rodney, pain in the ass. Ask Tugbobo, he'll tell you. This thing slaps hard. It's got only 2 turrets, 130mm guns, but like I said, the Soviet semi-armor piercing rounds absolutely kick butt. They got fast fire rates. You've got quad 45mm, you've got RBU 2500s, you've got torpedoes, and so this is the ideal destroyer, the ideal modern destroyer. It can take on a variety of mission sets and it can do it all really well. It's fast, it's a little bit squishy in the rear ammo rack like most destroyers are. Excellent reward modifier, and it sits at 5.0, the same as the Moffat. This thing is a Moffat killer. I should also mention it has a radar rangefinder with an update rate of 3 seconds. So fastest, well armed, most accurate. That's what makes it the best ship. Next up we have the Kerch, which is an Italian ship in disguise. Well, yeah, it was built by the Italians for the Russians. I don't have a lot of good things to say about this ship because it was a bot ship at one point. It was spammed and spammed and spammed. It's relatively survivable. It's got fairly good 6-inch guns, but I probably wouldn't recommend it. Just buy the Blagorodny. Blagorodny is cheaper, faster, hits harder. Blagorodny. Always Blagorodny. Next up is this is the counterpart to the Helena, and was a really scary threat to modern navies all around the world, the Sverdlov class cruiser. This one is the Zheleznyakov, and it is well armored. It's well armed with 6-inch fast firing guns with armor piercing, semi-armor piercing, and high explosive VT rounds. It's a little bit squishy in the front. If you get close, you can get through its armor, and with the recent changes to hull mechanics, blowing those ready rooms will almost sink the ship at full speed. So that's where the changes have really affected this ship, but still obscene damage output. But it's really which flavor do you want to play? Do you want to play the Sherbakov, the Zheleznyakov, the what's the other one? The Chapayev and the Mikhail Kutuzov. There's 4 of them. And I think that's pretty much close to how many were built. Just jokes. And it's hard to say that Soviet bias doesn't exist when you get premium battleships like the Myriad, which at 6.7, I honestly think she should be 7.0 because she is absolutely powerful. And it's the third one we've got? Sorry, the second one. We've got the Poltava, the Imperia, fuck me in the Russian names. Whatever. We've got the IM, the PK, and the Myriad. British destroyers were pretty heavy in the low tier stuff, and that's relative to the strength of Britain as a whole. And as sad as I am to say that, I don't think Britain are very meta yet until you get to the very end of the line. There are some niche ships, but really, it's hard to say. Like these ships are dirt cheap, so sure, grab them if you've got a couple hundred laying around, but it really doesn't start until you get to the Jarvis. And the Jarvis, I've got nothing but good things to say. This is a J-class destroyer, the Lucky Jarvis, one of the only ships to, I believe, not lose a single crew member throughout the entirety of World War II. And as a result, I honored this ship's memory and I took her to town. She's one of my most played ships, best earning ships. Love the Jarvis. Unfortunately, she is rank 2, so it really limited my ability to participate in Battle Pass and stuff like that. If Jarvis was rank 3, I would still be playing her. There we go, like 600 kills, 4 million, 100 games. That's pretty good for a rank 2 with early silver line modifiers. It doesn't have the great modifiers that the Moffats have. Nearly 1000%, but still not great. I believe the Jarvis was named after Sir John Jarvis, who was present at the Battle of Trafalgar. And so yeah, that's how I'm going to honor him. I've played as John Jarvis as a Age of Sail captain. Check out that video too. Next up we have the Mohawk. Mohawk is a great ship. Unfortunately, she was an export order ship, so you only get her if you buy her off the marketplace and they're available. But she's an 8-gun destroyer, which is pretty rare for the British. Then we've got the battle class HMS Cadets, another battle pass vehicle. Unfortunately, you have to buy it on the battle fucking stupid marketplace thing. Next, we've got Belfast. Belfast, on paper, the town class looks like a decent ship. She's got very good armor belt, which extends a fair way along the length of the ship. She's got good 6-inch guns at fast fire rate, excellent AA armament. She's got 6-inch high explosive variable time fuse shells, but nothing in the way of armor piercing, and the 6-inch SAP are really, what's flaccid, is the only word I could say. They just don't have any oomph to them at all, and it takes way more work than it should to kill anything bigger than a destroyer. So I really would recommend not buying this ship unless you really have to. At like 4,000 Golden Eagles on sale, what, 8,000 if at full price. That's nearly 60 Australian dollars, and I honestly couldn't justify that for what you get. The Iron Duke I have not played yet, and I have not played any British battleships in War Thunder. Britain is the nation that I'm really chipping away at, and I will get there eventually. I like to only play full lineups, so Iron Duke, I've got a test drive for that. I will review that in the coming week, and yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Then you've got the Renown class, which was the recent event vehicle, and the Tiger class, which was also an event vehicle. So you don't have a lot of options for Britain besides Jarvis, Belfast, or the Iron Duke. Next up, we have British Coastal Defence Team. With the submarines currently in the waters around Britain, I am confident that Britain's coastal, at least, and to some degree their blue water, will become meta against submarines, because they have an array of vehicles that are all suited for that kind of warfare, because they're the guys that really had to fight that fight. And yeah, so I expect that they will become meta in the submarine fight if we ever get to that stage, and I am very hopeful of that. First of their notable premiums is the Leola, which is a Spanish ship, ironically, but it is a Peacock class frigate or corvette. Can't remember the distinction of the Peacock, but she's fairly large. She's very survivable, but she has an Achilles heel in the form of one weapon, one meaningful surface weapon. The rest are obviously self-defense. You've got a very high-powered 20mm, which has APDS on their Leola, but unfortunately, that's not going to win you fights. That's going to save your life, and therefore your biggest weakness is that front gun, which does overheat. It does have small ammunition, and really, for the size of the ship, it's disappointing to only have 150 or so shells. Next up, we have the HMS Whitby, which continues the trend of single-gun British frigates, which is like, that's supposed to be a self-defense weapon. And this here is the Limbo Mortar is the primary armament because this ship is an anti-submarine frigate. So there are a few things that hold this ship back, and that is the atrocious ammunition costs, which have come down. I believe they were at 1.60 Silver Lions per shell, and you have a twin gun. So you were firing 120 Silver Lions every time you fired your gun, and if you missed, suck it. So I didn't enjoy the Whitby too much. Like, it's a fairly powerful ship, and it's fun to get around in, but in terms of effectiveness and what you fight at 3.7, it's not the greatest. It's also not the worst. Let's try not to be negative. Next we go to Japan. Japan have their coastal boats are historically supposed to only fight around tiny islands and inlets and stuff, so they really suffer from sea state and low-powered short-range weaponry. This thing is cool, the Type 4 Mod 4. It's one of the most unique vessels in the game in that it has no other power plant besides the aircraft engine strapped to the deck, which is cool. It makes it go pretty fast for what that hull form is capable of, 60 kilometers an hour. But if you take any light machine guns to those engines, you are like an aircraft and you are dead in the water. The first major premium ship that's worth noting is the Akebono, which has the twin 3-inch guns on the front and stern of the ship. They are very powerful, they've got a good rangefinder, and they're capable of solid damage output, although they do overheat, which is very annoying. The nearest tech tree comparison is the Ikazuchi, which is a very similar ship in its design, not quite the same, but the weaponry and the systems are basically the same. Beautiful looking ships. They're very large ships though, so they do stand out. You aren't hiding in those. And a lot of players mistake you for a destroyer because you spawn out with the destroyers. The next up is probably the best coastal vessel for Japan, and it's the PG-02, the Spavi Aero class fast attack interceptor. At the moment, the Japanese version only has the 20mm rotary cannon, but this vessel is capable of mounting up to 4 anti-ship missiles, and I have featured those. I've tested those actual missiles in a video. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It was a lot of fun, and I can't wait for those to be added. The Italians also have a 76mm version of that boat. Next, I forgot to do the Russians, so we'll come back to the Russians. The G5 is probably the best, one of the best torpedo boats, but it does lose effectiveness after destroyers. It's not really any good against cruisers and the such. The next would be the Project 123K, which was one of my early torpedo boats. Had lots of fun in, not the premium version, but the tech tree version. The A11, I believe, has a bigger foil on the front. That's the only difference. Project 1204 has been power crept to oblivion. Sea state changes mean it's almost impossible to hit anything with the main gun, although it is okay in a down tier. These are, we'll forget the other ones. The river boats, right? They also have been power crept by systems and weapons, and also environment. So you can be easily penetrated now. You can be, your weapons are almost impossible to aim on anything but a stable sea, and so I would avoid the river boats. Then we have the Project 50, which is a Soviet frigate with 100mm guns. They are very potent, and I actually quite like this ship. I'm quite fond of it. I've been meaning to make a video about the Project 50. Sorry, Lord Wintertown, I keep forgetting to make this ship video, but I will get around to it. And yeah, I would recommend this as a decent coastal vessel. It's almost a destroyer. It's definitely as survivable as a destroyer, and it has the same firepower as a lightly armed destroyer. It's just a little bit too slow. And that's it for the Soviets, I believe. No, we've got one more. Oh, right, here we go. The Project 12412 PALC class anti-submarine corvette. Now, this thing looks amazing. Look at all the weapon systems. 76mm, you've got an AK-630, Sea-Wiz on the back, you've got Strelas or Iglas in the middle, you've got torpedoes, you've got RBUs. What's not to like? Well, the fact is that it has criminally low ammunition on all of those said systems, and it's very, very squishy. Now, I haven't played this vessel in about 6 months, so I can't say definitively whether the damage model has changed too much. So let's have a quick look. But previously, one 5-inch shell would hull break you, and that was just the end of your game. And at 4.3, you're going to see a lot of 5-inch shells, because American destroyers are the meta. We'll just do a quick test of the hull form here. It looks like it's got a bunch of different compartments, and I don't really remember that stern hump, but, you know, things change. What I'm most excited for about this ship is, this vessel is its sister ship, the Tyrael, their ship missile launching one. Oh my god, it's a beautiful looking ship. If anyone's played Red Dragon, Wargames Red Dragon, you get to use Tyrael in that. Oh, it looks a little bit more survivable. It's only a little hole now. You used to make the whole hull black. Alright, so I will leave that up to anyone that's experienced the ship recently. Leave a comment below. But I would say that this is not worthy of a purchase until it gets all of its systems, including the anti-aircraft missiles. But the ammunition is just so low, and you cannot reload the AK-630 on a cap point. It's 2,000 rounds and then you're done. Alright, I think we need to go back to Japan now to do their blue water. Yes, we do. Alright, so blue water ships. I'm going to say that there are a few notable mentions in here. Mostly the JDS Yuguri, which is a Fletcher class with one less turret and much weaker torpedoes, but it gives the Japanese line much needed firepower. Then you have the Yagumo class and Yubari. Now, I have nothing but no good things to say about Yubari, but I've never actually played it. I just didn't see the purpose of it. It was always played by bots. I guess that was one thing. And I never saw it actually achieve anything. But it has an amazing reward modifier of 1800. So you know what? I'm going to take the dive and I'm going to buy this one. And I'm going to see if my opinions were founded or not. So keep an eye out. I'll make a video on Yubari and see if she is what she's worth. Obviously the sale will be over by then, but she's still fairly cheap at 1500. Then you have got the what's that? The Hatsuzuki. Oh, this was the War Thunder Mobile one. I don't know if you can still get this, but I believe when War Thunder Mobile, there's some tasks you can do, and it'll unlock that ship in the game for you. It's not a premium though, so don't get too excited. Best, I've been asked what's better, Mikuma or Miyoko. I would say right now Miyoko is the better ship, 100% the better ship. She was released, when was it? Apex Predators, that's right. This time last year, I bought this ship at full price, 7,480 Golden Eagles, and it was one of the first ones where I put a lot of effort into the video as well, talking about the IGN's heavy cruiser doctrine, and also I made a how to play video about her. She is a solid ship. 5.7, I would argue that she is a contender for the best 5.7 cruiser in the game, next to the Prince Eugen, the Prince of Pain, or the Prince of Pleasure, depending on who you are at the time. She's got five turrets with twin 8-inch guns. I prefer the Japanese 8-inch guns over the German ones. I get more bang for my buck out of them, and having 10 guns means that you can continuously fire them. Great ship, fantastic ship, and I believe it's also a contender for one of my best earning ships, and I haven't played her too much. Just when I really... having the long lances as well makes her perfect for fighting other cruisers or ships heavier than yourself, and if you get the right map, like Spain, you can just launch them at the start and clean up. Clean up on Isle 5. 5 million Silver Lions earned from 75 games rather, with a 75% win rate. Yeah, she's tough. And she's better armored than the Aoba and Furutaka, but not as armored as the Mogami class. So she's intermediate, she's got scout planes, whatever. I couldn't sing praises high enough of the ship, and she's currently very, very cheap for what you get, and I expect to see a lot more of them. And which is good, because I want to fight more than just Helenas all the time. And then the contender for that role was the IJN Mikuma, which is the Mogami class heavy cruiser that the Japanese tried to say was a light cruiser by putting lighter guns on. Now, all of the Mogamis were built with the 155mm guns, but the intention was always to upgrade them to the larger heavy-hitting 8-inch guns. It just made them too heavy. Well, they're already too heavy, but it just made it too hard to believe that this was a light cruiser by having 8-inch guns. She's got a great armor belt, but unfortunately she's at 6.0, and she was also one of the only Japanese ships to have a dedicated armor-piercing high explosive round. So you could always tell that you were fighting a Mikuma over a, I can't remember, Setsu I believe it is. I can't remember the name of the other one. There's a tech tree variant, and you could always tell because the tech tree variant didn't have armor piercing. And this is the sister, the Mogami, the lead ship of the class, and the one that's in her true form with the 10 8-inch guns. And she basically has the same firepower as Miyoko. And both those ships are at 6.0, and so that's why I say Miyoko is better. Next up, we have the Yamashiro, which I also haven't played, but I expect her to play just like the Fuso, as she is a Fuso, although she seems to be taking a similar trend that Gaijin is taking, steering away from having more AA on the premium to having less. The last couple of editions of premiums have had less AA than their tech tree counterparts, and that's not a bad thing. It's got a lower battle rating as a result of that, I think, and so Yamashiro is going to get gentle battle rating placement just like Marat. So Marat and Yamashiro may be the two that sort of take that premium battleship title. Well, it's yet to see. We'll see. I don't know how Iron Duke's going to play, so it may be a bit of a triumvirate. Okay, I think we're coming to the end. We've got the Italians to do next. Again, the Italians are a hard one because their destroyers suck. Like, there's no easy way to say it. I like Italian ships, but they suck. The guns just suck. The reload rate just sucks. The traverse sucks. Oh, man. But fortunately, you get a Fletcher in here, the Genieri, which is a Fante class destroyer, a upgraded and modified Fletcher given to the Italians after World War II, and it's a very good ship. Unfortunately, it's rank 2. Then we have the Tigre. Now, I haven't played this ship, but it does look interesting because it is an 8-gun destroyer. 8 120mm guns, so it's got much more firepower than some of the other ships I've played for Italy, namely the one that I'll mention next. And on paper, they're dedicated armor-piercing rounds. I believe they're the only destroyers in the game to have dedicated armor-piercing rounds. high velocity, but I just can't get them to work. The dispersion sucks. RN Aviere is the ship I just mentioned. This is a 4-gun destroyer, and with the slow reload, man, it feels like you're playing a miniature cruiser with no armor and no reply. Like, the AA armament can't target the surface. Don't buy Aviary, please. Unless you get it for free or your mate gives it to you, I would avoid these 2 destroyers, even though they're at rank 3. RN Polar. RN Polar, I believe, is a good ship. I haven't actually played her, but I've fought my fair share of them. And I believe that a damage model has been fixed, because it was possible to ammo rack these with Omaha class light cruisers from the US tech tree, which have World War I era 6-inch guns, and you could do it from a decent range. So I believe that they've been fixed. Citadel rework was probably fixed that, and it does look like the armor is a very contained system. It's got the all or nothing armor scheme there. And also, curiously, the float planes are mounted in the front of the ship, underneath the deck, I believe. Alright, let's move over to France. Champagne-stained ships. Got the Panetheri, which is the Jaguar class. This is the, I believe, same as the Leopard. Exactly the same as the Leopard, so only get it if it's free. Next up, we have the Agile. This one is okay. It's got very, very hard-hitting guns, but slow traverse speed, very fast running speed, and the reload rate is workable. Alright, the French cruiser, I'm not going to try that name. I should have googled it before I made this video, but yeah. The Doug and Troy, we'll call it Doug and Troy. Dougie and Troy. Yeah, Dougie and Troy is decent. It's like a cruise liner that they decided to send to war. Very, very light armor. I mean, your passengers would be happy to have some armor, but I'm sure the warship sailors would not be happy with that level of armor. And I guess you got a good view. There's portholes all up the side. Got 6-inch guns which pack a wallop with 6 kilos of TNT. The base fuse shell is completely obsolete. Do not use it. Don't bother. It's got less TNT, less pen than the semi-armor piercing round, so you should always use that one. Unless you're really trying to fight deck fights, but really the velocity of both shells is the same, so you're going to have the same effect from plunging fire. Hope I'm not going over anyone's heads there with random mutterings, but I believe we've come to the end, as the French have no coastal tree. Let's have a quick look. Oh, we've got the duplex. Alright, duplex is a strange one. Like, I've had a look at this damage model, and the armor seems to be recessed well within the hull. And so it looks like that shells penetrate the hull, and then get stopped by the armor. So I don't know if that leads to some kind of quirky flooding mechanics. And the way the armor scheme is, it's like, got coal bunkers here, you got stuff slapped there. Oh, we forgot to put the armor on the outside of the ship. I don't know. I don't know the history of this ship, so there could be very well a reason for it. But at this stage, it seems very quirky, and until I've played it, I wouldn't recommend buying it. It does have 8-inch guns. It has 8 of them. It has a fair complement of AA weaponry, but I'm not sure if it's a good buy, and I won't say until I've actually played the ship. That brings us to a wrap, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think, and I'll give a pin and a love heart to anybody that timestamps all of the nations. Until next time, Commander Tyrael, out.